and the MOE, and now we are having the department. The assumption I'm making is that we are ready for the meeting. Well, let me welcome everybody into the meeting. I know that we are coming from a break, which break did allow us to do certain work and everything else. The department, I know you were busy in Guyana and the other places where you were busy with. We hope that at the final analysis we'll get the feedback of what was happening, because we are going to Guyana ourselves end of the month. Can you have to observe a moment of silence and for mediation and prayer? Thank you very much. You are all welcome into the meeting. Any apologies, Piwa?
There was an indication, Chairperson, that the minister is running a little bit late, but I think he is on the platform now. But it was indicated that he will join the meeting a little bit later because he's caught up in another meeting.
Okay, so if he is in the meeting, so that indication is of immaterial nature. Okay. So if that is the case, we are on item 4. The minister himself will take us through the item 4. And I want us to deal with item 4 and 5 simultaneously, then, not simultaneously, chronologically. And then we can deliberate at item 6 after the 2 presentations. Minister Mkunu.
I don't think he's in the meeting, Chair, yet.
He's not in the meeting?
Doesn't look like it, not yet.
If not, the deputy ministers are here. Any of them that will just allow us to be politically be taken on board on the issues. I've heard the Deputy Minister Mahlobo.
Mama Katso will lead us, Chief.
If she is, please let us.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Deputy Minister Mahlobo, all members of the Portfolio Committee, Director General and team, Department of Water and Sanitation, TCTA, led by the Chairperson of the board and the CE. Let me indicate that we're here now going to be talking to the issues of the annual performance plan, but always reminding ourselves that the advent of the 6th administration we had a strategic planning, which actually on an annual basis we go into looking into what we termed ourselves at the beginning of the term and what we are intending to do and how far have we progressed, particularly looking at our financial information, looking at our performance indicators in the department and service delivery in particular, and our targets in this regard. And I think, Chairperson, having spoken to that, we must also, as the Portfolio Committee Parliament, always remember that political oversight must be enhanced, and our key priorities must always be what we are anticipating. At the center, as a department, we're always making sure that our annual performance plan are budgeted for, and we report properly so. But of strategic importance is that we must, on a regular basis, make sure that our choices of the service delivery that we are implementing are choices that actually can be able to deal with the challenges, socio-economic challenges in its entirety. But Chairperson, let me indicate that as we're doing that, making sure that we contribute towards the economy, we contribute towards the social issues all the time. Value for money is at the center of everything that we are doing. Let me indicate that we have termed ourselves in this annual performance plan of 2021-22 that we have to make sure that the challenges that have been there, in particular of underspending, challenges that have been there of posts that have not been filled, of unauthorized expenditure, fruitless expenditure, are reduced. And I would gladly say that we've got most of the executive posts at senior management level having been filled, and we going and moving towards a turnaround plan, particularly on the supply chain issues, which are a burden. The DG will be able to speak to that, and also dealing with the financial recovery in this regard to make sure that, as I indicated, value for money in everything that we're doing. But suffice to say that our audit report indicates that we've got an unqualified audit with some findings, as has been indicated both in the department, in the main vote, and in the water trading entity. Chairperson, TCTA is one can say it's one of our shining stars as we talk, because they've got an unqualified audit opinion with no matters of emphasis. And what we can be able to say is that implementing their project, we are quite satisfied, and we believe that as we move, they will also move with speed, because there are so many things which are on the positive. Your operation and maintenance is with TCTA. It's something that we can be able to say. We, as the department, so far, there may be challenges, but we would say that today is better than yesterday, and tomorrow will be better than today. Chairperson, dear Mahlobo, if there's any other matter that you want to add, I would give it to dear Mahlobo, and then we can proceed with the meeting. Dear. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me give Dr. Phillips for him to make a presentation. Then TCTA will be able to follow once he makes the presentation. Thanks very much, Chairperson, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Good afternoon, Chairperson and honourable members and colleagues, and both Deputy Ministers. I'm going to make a short introduction to the presentation, and then with your permission, Chairperson, I'd like to hand over to the Director for Performance Management in the Office of the DG, Babalwa, to present on the performance information in the annual report. And then I'd like to, she will in turn hand over to Frans, our CFO, to present on the financial information in the annual report. So if we can go to the next slide, please, for me to give the introduction. We can go down to the introduction slide, please, slide 4. Thank you. So as indicated by the Deputy Minister, and as indicated in the annual report, while we've had some improvement in that we now have an unqualified audit report, we still have a long way to go to where we'd like to be as the department. And we're focusing on a number of areas of improvement, which are intended to enable us to have better annual reports in future years. In the area of financial management, we are still in the process of implementing our financial turnaround and recovery plan. And I think the progress that we've made in implementing that is illustrated or reflected in the fact that we've been able to get an unqualified audit report, thanks in large part to the very hard work of Frans Moachi, our CFO, and our emphasis on improved financial management, on accountability, on regularity, and also on being responsive to the Auditor-General and prioritizing responsiveness to the Auditor-General. However, we do still have some challenges with financial management, including particularly under expenditure, which I'll come to just now. In terms of reducing unauthorized and irregular expenditure, as I've indicated, under France's leadership, we have substantially strengthened financial controls in the department and supply chain management controls. And we are insisting that everything be done regularly now. We are also dealing with the past irregular and unauthorized expenditure in terms of ensuring that disciplinary action is taken in all the cases where it's necessary to take it, and where possible, monies are recovered. We are also collaborating fully with the SIU in the various investigations they're undertaking into various cases in the department. And France is also working hard to meet all the requirements of National Treasury to condone the old unauthorized and irregular expenditure. Some of that takes some time because, for example, for some of the condemnations, we first have to complete the disciplinary processes, and some of them are still underway. But we are focusing on all of those things, and I am, as the DG, am regularly monitoring progress with all the financial misconduct disciplinary cases and making sure that they're all moving in one way or another, moving forward. On the area of under expenditure, which was a big problem last financial year, in our assessment, there are 2 or 3 main causes of the under expenditure. The first is weaknesses with our infrastructure procurement, which is probably the biggest cause of our under expenditure. I have found since I joined the department as the DG that the way in which we do our infrastructure and construction procurement is very old-fashioned. There's virtually no differentiation between the way we procure infrastructure and construction projects and the way we procure other goods and services, which is wrong. And as a result, I've been working with the CFO, and we've recently put in place a new infrastructure procurement strategy and infrastructure procurement supply chain policy for the department. And we're going to be starting training our staff on the new policy and strategy from next week. And we're going to be, in future, introducing better, different ways of procuring infrastructure and construction projects, which will be much more efficient and effective. And that'll result in us being able to spend our budgets more quickly and more effectively, and reduce our under expenditure. The second main cause of our under expenditure has been weaknesses with project management. And we are also in the process of addressing that, including through the minister himself and the 2 deputy ministers playing a very important role in terms of monitoring all of our main projects at the department, The Minister and the Deputy Ministers almost on a weekly basis are visiting one or other of our projects, going on site, asking questions about why things are delayed, how things could be expedited and accelerated, and that is having a big impact. I think the fact that we've recently also appointed a DDG for water services has also enabled much more focus on expediting the implementation of projects. And the appointment of the DDG regulation has enabled Leonardo Moanos to go back to being acting DDG for infrastructure. And that's also had a big impact on him being able to focus on expediting the infrastructure projects. The role of the Minister and Deputy Ministers has been key. Some of our projects have been delayed by factors such as disruptions by so-called business forums. And also in some cases, such as the Ngiani project, we recently had a delay as a result of a traditional leader asking for the project to be stopped while some issues were to be sorted out. And the Minister and Deputy Ministers have helped us to resolve those issues to enable us to accelerate our projects. So I think our project management is improving. Leonardo and Rizimati, our DDG for water services, are going to be regularly doing what the Minister and Deputy Ministers have been doing and going to site, doing blitz visits to sites to ensure that things are accelerated and that blockages are resolved. And one of the reasons for where we haven't met our performance targets has been that we haven't been as structured as well as we could be optimally as a department. And the Minister has recently approved a revised organizational structure, which has some important changes in it, including, for example, that the regional offices now report to the DDG for water services, which enables the DDG for water services to really focus on working with the regional offices to make sure that the RBIG and WSIG grants are allocated timelessly and that they're fully spent and that they've spent efficiently. And he's also able to work with the regional offices to get them increasingly to play a stronger support and intervention role in municipalities where there are major weaknesses with water and sanitation service delivery. I think those are, in summary, our key focus areas to address the shortcomings in the performance and financial management in the department as indicated in the annual report. And with your permission, Chairperson, I'd now like to hand over to Babawa to present the performance information in the annual report. Babawa.
Thank you, DG. Good afternoon to the members of the Portfolio Committee, the DMs, my colleagues from the department and also from the TCTA. Just to indicate that this slide shows a comparison between the financial and non-financial performance, which is a high-level summary of what is actually contained in the annual report. If you look at the comparison for the three programs, you'll see that we're talking to the program achieving 67% and the budget of 88% was spent. Water resources management, 63 and 97% was spent, and the achievement of 72% for water services management and a budget of 82% was spent. Overall, we have an achievement of performance of 66% versus an expenditure of 86%. On the right-hand side is the high-level indication of the areas of underperformance that contributed to us not achieving the 100% claim. If you go to slide 8, it is a graphical presentation of what I have just indicated there, but I just want to draw the committee's attention that this shows a 4% improvement if we compare it to the previous 2020-2021 financial year overall. And if you go to then the next slide, that talks to the implementation of the preferential procurement regulations. Overall, in terms of procurement from the SMME, we achieved a 53%. And this is also an improvement compared to the previous year of 4%. And on the other side of the graph, it indicates a achievement of 27% from exempted micro enterprises and also 26% from qualifying small enterprises. If you go to the next slide of procurement against designated groups, you see that our performance there for women is slightly above what was planned at 46%. And unfortunately, the two other designated groups, we achieved 2% from persons with disabilities and 19% from youth, and which is an underachievement based on what was planned for the financial year. If you go to slide 12, which is a high-level summary of the sub-program within Program 1, Administration. This slide can be summarized to indicate that one of the sub-programs achieved all their planned targets for the year. One achieved 80% and two achieved 50% and 57% respectively. Slide 13 therefore indicates a summary of the cumulative achievements for the year for each sub-program. If you go then to slide 14, it is the areas of partial and non-achievement for the program. You will see that we achieved 96% of our risk management plan and 24% of our training interventions for the year. And the reasons for not achieving and partially achieving are actually included in that slide. Slide 15 talks to financial management issues, which indicates the areas of partial and non-achievement, particularly for the qualifying small enterprises, the implementation of our financial recovery plan, and the expenditure on our budget. These honorable members, the CFO will talk into much detail on. So if you will allow me to go to the second program, which is water resource management, which is slide 17. Slide 17 can be summarized to indicate that of the 7 programs, 2 achieved 100% of what was planned. 1 achieved 70%, over 70%, which is 79% of what was planned. 3 achieved 50% of their planned targets for the year, and 1 achieved 30% of what was planned. And the 2 subsequent slides, slide 18 and 19, are a summary, high-level summary of what was actually achieved for the year for all the 7 programs that achieved. And if you go to slide 20, then it is details on the areas of partial and non-achievement within water resources information management, which is an indication that we just managed to do the framework for the digitized integrated water and sanitation monitoring system. And we managed to complete 90% of the limit legislation. For policy and strategy, we managed to submit the National Water Amendment Bill to the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor for initial certification. Slide 21, we are reporting that we managed to gazette 1 CMA for establishment and the new operation area for Pongola Mzumkulu, and also we managed to transform 1 irrigation board into a water user association. If you go to slide 22, it is an indication that we actually plan to have 5 of the projects, but we managed to have 4 projects that were in preparation phase, bulk raw water projects. And those projects are listed there: Olifants River Water Resource Development Project, Koni Dam and Mamitwa Dam, which were not met. And the 2 projects that were planned for construction, it is Clan William and Zanin Dam, which were not under construction by the end of the financial year. If you go to slide 23, still under the same sub-program, because of the delays, we managed to create 37 job opportunities from the infrastructure projects, and we managed to have scheduled maintenance at 44%, and unscheduled maintenance was at 39%. The dam safety evaluations that we completed were 18 of the planned 20. Then the last part of the Water Resources Infrastructure Management Program, which is in slide 24, we are indicating there that we could not complete the dam safety rehabilitation of 2 of our dams, which are currently at 52% and 5% respectively. Then we're going to slide 25, which is an indication of the areas of partial and non-achievement within the water resources regulation. We managed to authorize or finalize the applications for water use authorization. And within the regulated period, 63% was what we managed to achieve by the end of the financial year. We managed to also develop draft regulations for the water allocation reform and a second draft business case for the establishment of an independent economic regulator. The third program, which is water services management, if you go to slide 27, to summarize this slide, it is 3 of the sub-programs that achieved 100% of what was planned. 1 achieved 72% of what was planned. 1 achieved 56%, and 1 did not achieve any of their planned targets for the year. The summary of the cumulative achievements, which is slide 28, is just a summary of the achievements for the year for the sub-programs as mentioned above. But if you look at slide 29, it is just a disaggregation of the performance per provincial area within the water services infrastructure grants. You look at the first 2 columns, the third column 2 and column 3 talks to the regional bulk infrastructure projects, and also column 3 and column 4, it also talks to the water services infrastructure grant projects. And the disaggregation per province is included there. The plan was to have 128, which was achieved, and we managed to complete 15 of what was under construction. For the water services infrastructure grant, 331 projects were under construction, and we managed to complete 72 of what was under construction. And the 1 intervention project at the end of the financial year was the valve intervention, which was under construction. Then if you look at the areas of partial and non-achievement within water services and local management, we managed to do a draft inception report on the conservation and demand management strategies. We could not complete any of the feasibility and implementation readiness studies for the water and wastewater services projects. But then the reasons are included there is procurement delays, which was the DG mentioned in his opening remarks. And also, unfortunately, we could not also complete the 5 district municipality 5-year reliability plans, also affected by the procurement issues. If you look at the regional bulk infrastructure grant, this is also an indication of how we had planned in the annual performance plan. The mega projects are those that have got a cost of over R1 billion. So we managed to have those under construction, 7 of those, and 3 of those were not started by the end of the financial year. The large bulk projects, those are between over 250 million to just below R1 billion. And we managed to have those 4 projects under construction, and the 5 projects that were not under construction under the end of, by the end of the financial year are also included, and the reasons are detailed on that slide. And then the last slide, which is slide 32, which talks to the policy and strategy issue, is that we managed to have a draft water services bill, amendment bill, in preparation to be sent for the Office of the State Law Advisor for preliminary certification. Thank you, honorable members. The subsequent slides will be talking to the financial performance. I would like to hand over to the CFO.
Thank you, Abola, and good afternoon to the Portfolio Committee, DMs, and DG colleagues. I'll be taking the committee through the financial overview for the 21-22 financial year. As indicated, we have spent 86% of the budget for this financial year, of which 94, 65, and 100%, 61% was spent on various economic classifications, as indicated on the screen for your compensation of employees, goods and services, transfers and subsidies, as well as capital expenditure. At the end of the year, we still had some work that was still ongoing, as well as the commitments that we were busy with, those that could not be billed at the end. And as part of the measures to deal with the underspending, the Director-General already spoke to some of the measures that we have put in place, which are covered in the department's financial recovery plan. And I'll also be taking the committee through some of the key elements or the items of the financial statements. All the details are contained in the appropriation statement, statement of financial performance and position, together with the notes. We can move to the next slide. On the vote, the main account, this is the overview. I think the key items here, expenditure we've already indicated on the underspending against the budget, and also that we have commitments that are not moving as it was anticipated. We closed the financial year with 6 billion worth of commitments, which if we would have accelerated during the year, we would have been able to meet the target on the spending. Another item that is key to reflect on, these are your contingent liabilities, which we closed at 11 billion. Those comprises of guarantor institutions, including COBOA, Land Bank, as well as the TCTA for the loans of which the government is the guarantee. And on irregular expenditure, as well as Fruitless, there was a reduction there. Mainly on irregular expenditure, it relates to the condonations, which I will talk to in the subsequent slides as approved by National Treasury. Similarly, on the next slide, the water trading entity, the revenue from the sales of water that the trading entity is responsible for has also increased. However, as indicated, we still have challenges with the collection. The trade receivables increased from 20 billion in the comparative period to 24 in the reporting year. And then we also have long-term financial liabilities, which are linked to the guarantees that I have already spoken to on the previous slide. Also on the water trading entity, through the condonation process, the irregular expenditure went down. It decreased as reflected on the screen. The condonations were approved by National Treasury. Then we can move to the key infrastructure items that contributed to underspending. As indicated, we have regional bulk infrastructure grant, which did not perform well with the underspending of 1.2 billion. And included in there are key projects for the bucket eradication program. We also have Velvet Daft in the Free State. And another key project that we did not perform well on during the financial year is the Vaal River System intervention. And some of our implementing agents as well had challenges, amongst others, the Mahalis water on the Madibeng bulk water supply project, which in the subsequent year did actually recover. But for this particular year, there were some challenges. This is applicable for both the regional bulk infrastructure as well as the water services infrastructure grant, the underspending. On the next slide, Chairperson, this is an overview of the transfers that we have made to local government as per the approved schedule from National Treasury. It's another area where the department is trying to focus in terms of making sure that the funds that we are transferring to the municipalities are used for the intended purpose. So we have managed to transfer all the allocated funds. And the next slide. This slide is a slide that speaks to the regional bulk infrastructure grant as well as the water services infrastructure grant. And it's the same information that I presented earlier on. It's only presented here per province, just to reflect on where the underspending is in the various provinces for both the RBIC and the WISIC grant. And then on slide number 42, it's a summary of the measures that the department has put in place to improve the spending. On the compensation of employees, the revised structure as indicated by the Director-General has been approved and is currently being implemented. And we do not anticipate any underspending in future. And on local government conditional grants, there's continued support to municipalities. The department continues to work together with the provincial treasuries, National Treasury, as well as COCTA to strengthen compliance and service delivery in the affected municipalities. Also on the operational and capital expenditure, there are measures to improve project management within the department and the implementing agents. A bulk of the commitments that I referred to earlier on the 6 billion, they are incurred through the implementing agents of the department. So it is very important that in our endeavor to improve the capacity of the state to deliver, that we work very close with the implementing agents as well. Community engagement programs as well are being accelerated. We have experienced a number of challenges in the Vaal, for example, and Guyana, where there are stoppages, and we had our ministry supporting us there to unlock some of the challenges that we have experienced. Another measure that we have put in place, we have early warning systems for timely budget prioritization, where we move the funds from low spending projects to projects with the capacity to spend any additional funding that is available. We can move to the next slide. On the next slide, it's an overview of the audit outcomes. As indicated, both the main account, the vote, and the WTE received unqualified audit opinions with findings, as indicated that we still have some deficiencies, weaknesses that we are addressing. We have developed detailed audit action plans, which we have put in place with specific corrective actions and milestones, where we are doing our best to progressively move towards achieving a clean audit as a department. Another measure that we have put in place is the awareness of staff, training and development, and overall strengthening of our controls within the department and also within the implementing agents. And we are constantly working with the Office of the Accountant General, especially on matters where we have challenges or disagreements, so that we can resolve them timelessly with the Auditor General. The next slide, Chairperson, is an overview of the material irregularities that have been highlighted by the Auditor General. The first one relates to the interest that was paid, which attracted the interest. I mean, this relates to the prepayment that the advance that the department did not make on time, and the contractor had to take the department to court. So in line with the recommendations of the investigation report, the department issued claims against the former officials who are responsible for this incident, and the Office of the State Attorney is busy with those matters that we have referred to them. The next material irregularity on the next slide relates to the amounts which were paid to a contractor for site re-establishment cost and the standing time. Again, on this matter, investigation was instituted by the Director-General, and recommendations were made. Those recommendations are being implemented. One of them has to do with the dedicated financial manager, which we have since appointed, and the measures which were recommended are being also implemented. Labor Relations also has begun with the implementations of the recommendations for the identified officials. Next slide, please. This one is in relation to the vote, is an old material irregularity. It is still before the court, and also disciplinary proceedings are continuing with the responsible official who's still within the public service, and also as indicated, the matter is with the South African Police Service and also before the High Court. And we are hopeful that we should be able to recover funds that are due to the department. We also indicated earlier on, Chairperson DG indicated that we do have a financial recovery plan. It touches on a number of areas around budget management, supply chain management, and how we do the expenditure control, financial governance, and accountability. And the status of all those broad strategies are reflected on the slide. And then on the next slide, the financial highlights. This is just to share with the committee that we are reviewing and monitoring these key items of the financial statements on a regular basis to make sure that we do not go back to the challenges that we experienced in the past. We can move to the next slide. It's the same information, but in this case, we are reflecting on the highlights for the water trading entity. As indicated there, that the trade receivables is still a challenge. We are working very close with the Department of National Treasury, SALGA, to make sure that we resolve the issues that we are having with the collection of debt. This is for information that we are managing the financial recovery. So we can move to the next slide, which on the irregular expenditure, Chairperson has indicated we still have some challenges. We have a total amount of 8.8 billion that is still with National Treasury for condonation at various stages. Some of those could not be finalized, Chairperson, as indicated by the DG, that some have the corrupt elements, and we had to lay the criminal charges with the South African Police Service. And there are also issues of disciplinary proceedings which are taking long in some instances. And we are hopeful that this 8.8 billion will be resolved soonest. And we have also given the forensic investigators of the department a total amount of 2 billion worth of cases that they are currently investigating. We can move to the next slide. This is a summary of all the improper expenditure, both the unauthorized, the fruitless, and irregular. The unauthorized expenditure relates to the prior year where the department had overspending of the main division of a vote in respect of bucket eradication and war on leaks programs in the previous financial years. And as indicated, when it comes to irregular expenditure, we have put more capacity to make sure that we accelerate the investigations in this year so that these matters can be brought to finality. The next slide is the unauthorized expenditure. I already spoke to that. We can move to the summary of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. These are the cases that have been reported for the 22-23 financial year that we are currently dealing with as part of the financial recovery plan. They are coming from the previous financial year, Chairperson, but we are pursuing them through investigations. And the next slide. Okay, this Chairperson represents those issues that I've indicated around the condonations from the Guyana Water Service project and those other projects that we are saying that we are waiting for the investigations to be concluded by the police as well as the court cases. On the next slide as well, slide number 55, those are some of the cases. I think one other case that has been prominent that the department has been pursuing relates to the sub-matter, and I can confirm that the disciplinary proceedings are almost nearing the process there, so we should be able to get condonation from National Treasury. We are only waiting for the outcome of the disciplinary proceedings. All other documents that were requested by National Treasury have been submitted to National Treasury as required. And then on slide number 56, these are the these are the irregular expenditure that we are saying that they are in the process of condonation. And 57, Chairperson, these are the irregular expenditure which were condoned by the National Treasury. 1.5 billion worth of irregular expenditure. We have complied with the minimum requirement that has been set by the National Treasury in their irregular expenditure framework. And then on slide number 58 is just a graphic presentation of the irregular expenditure trend over the financial years, which indicates the years in which we have incurred high irregular expenditure, and also our goal to make sure that we eliminate this in the current financial years. Slide number 58 is the same information, Chairperson, just reflecting on the cumulative balances for both the water trading and the main account on irregular expenditure. And then on slide number 16, these are some of the cases that have been investigated, handled by our internal audit unit. It demonstrates the progress that has been made over the financial years, and our investigators internally, they continue to support the department with the aim of ensuring that we prevent some of these cases, and also that we expedite the investigations to make sure that where we need to recover the funds, we do that speedily, and also that we implement the recommendations that they have made. And the last slide has to do with the measures that we have put in place as a department. The financial turnaround and financial recovery plan will continue with that, which speaks to a number of issues, elements that DG spoke to around leadership, feeling of purpose, the culture within the organization. And then the trend analysis is showing that this expenditure is going down, but it is our aim, Chairperson, that we should be able to prevent any incurrence of this improper expenditure by implementing and the strengthening of our internal control processes. And also on the exit strategy, we have the plan to make sure that all the irregular contracts were able to exit them through the advice of our legal services. And lastly, the streamlined and integrated water sector value support. That is what the Director General indicated, that we do have plans in place to make sure that we work very closely with the municipalities, the water boards, and our sister departments in the endeavor to improve service delivery. Thank you, Chairperson.
DM, are you ready?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think Team DG has really covered all anticipated. We're putting it to yourself, Chairperson, and the Portfolio Committee. We are at your service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I'm sure we agreed that we are then going to the second presentation of the TCTA. The Wilco will then talk to...
That's what you said, Chair. We'll take 4 and 5.
Yeah. TCTA.
Thank you, Chairperson and members of the committee, Deputy Ministers, Chairperson of TCTA, my colleagues in TCTA and in the department. Chair, with your permission, I would like to give the platform to the Chair of TCTA first to give an overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir. Thank you, Chairperson. Good day to the DMs and members of the Portfolio Committee. I just thought probably I should give an overview because we have been at this helm for the past 3 years. I think the board of TCTA has managed to exercise this oversight role, and most importantly, its fiduciary role, as evidenced by the outcome of the audit process. as alluded to by the DM, we did receive an audit opinion. We did receive an unqualified audit opinion with no matter of emphasis. And thanks to management and also the department who were working closely with us, bearing in mind that we come from a situation where we had a qualified audit. However, we also fully understand that we are already pursuing a clean audit where we don't have any findings. And at our strategy breakaway session on Friday, the board and management reinforced its commitment to actually pursue this objective. And we are comfortable that we are eventually going to realize a clean audit. And if one looks at our agreement with the minister in terms of the shareholder compact and also our agreement between management and the board, we are comfortable that we have performed well. I think it's over 70% performance in respect to the shareholder compact. It's around 77%, and we are comfortable that in terms of some of the issues that are actually contained in the report, we have a plan, a timeline plan in place to also deal with the regular fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which is basically historical in nature, and also as a result of National Treasury notice. So I want to reassure the committee that we will passionately pursue some of the plans that are in place with the ultimate intention of promoting good and clean governance. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, from there then maybe I should just take over in terms of the presentation itself. You'd see that I'm starting on slide 8. The first 7 slides are really introducing what TCTA is about, our mission and vision. But I think today we're looking at the performance of the organization. So I'm going straight into the organizational performance. And here we're saying TCTA continues to fulfill a critical role in the water sector through raising of funding, implementation of sound infrastructure, and diligent debt management. These are the 3 big areas in terms of what we do. And because we are a special purpose vehicle, we always have to get the directive or mandate from the minister in terms of everything that is being done by TCTA. Now, of the 3, in this the year under review, we are still in the planning phase in terms of some of the projects, and then we're looking at negotiating with the end users. But the one thing that we've done quite well in the year under review is looking at debt management, because we go into the market to borrow money, and then we need to make sure that that money is repaid, whether through bonds or even going into the capital markets. So in terms of the year under review, on all projects, capital and interest payments were made on the due dates, and the borrowing limits on the projects were not breached, which is a good thing in terms of how National Treasury looks at whether we're using the money as in line with the borrowing limit that they set for us. In the management of debt, the most noteworthy achievement was on the 28th of May 2021, where the repayment of the WSP5 bond and its associated coupon occurred, and an amount of 9.8 billion was actually repaid to settle the bond. The underlying cash flows on the Vaal River system remain strong, as demonstrated by the fact that as of 31 March 2022, an amount of 5.5 billion in cash was available in the account for use on LHWP2, which is the Lesotho Highlands Water Project. I just need to also highlight on this that yesterday I also got a letter from our sister organization in Lesotho, the LHDA, which in terms of the contracting that we do, would want to know before they finalize any contracts whether TCTA has enough money for them to actually finalize the contracts on their part. This is part of the FIDI contract in terms of how we're working with them. So it's very important for us to actually ensure that before major contracts are finalized on the Lesotho side, we actually need to prove that there is enough money on the South African side to pay for the signing and implementation of those contracts. And that's something that we are working with at this particular point in time. But this is also done in anticipation because we could see that it's very important that we get all the necessary approvals before we go into the market, both from the department and more importantly from the Minister of Finance. And sometimes those processes take a bit longer. That's why we are highlighting that we've tried to actually ensure that there would be enough money in terms of this particular project so that we can finalize the big contracts and then the work can actually start on the phase 2. I think what we say is this is something that the market looks at very carefully and closely. And it's important for TCTA to demonstrate to the market the ability to finance national water resource infrastructure and repay the money owed through tariffs received from the users. There are other minor issues that we are dealing with in terms of debt management. We've started also accelerating the payment of some of the projects that we have because it's very important that we try to smooth the curve in terms of ensuring that ultimately our customers do not have to bear the bigger brunt of expensive water, but it's something that one needs to balance at all times. The project in implementation for the year under review, phase 2A of the Mokolo Crocodile Water Augmentation Project that we call MACWAP 2A for short. What this project is about is it will augment water supply to ESCOM, IPP power generation and associated coal mining, the Palale municipality, and unlock economic development in the water coal fields. I think I don't have to remind the committee of some of the challenges that we currently having in Limpopo at this stage. So this project will partly now ensure that we can augment the water supply going into that particular area. And it consists of a 160-kilometer pipeline from Kabazimbi to Limpopo. The project is currently in the tender design and procurement phase, and the approximate cost at this stage is 12.3 billion. The issuing of the tender is dependent on securing the total project funding or National Treasury granting exemption from the requirement in National Treasury Supply Chain Management Note 3 that requires funding to be available before going out on tender. So we always have to make sure that we get the funding sorted out before we can even go on tender and make sure that we get people that will ensure that this project gets done, because we do go out and then get service providers to do some of the work. Project at preparatory phase, the Mkomazi Water Project phase 1. Why is the project necessary? The Mkomazi Water Project will transfer water from the Mkomazi River to augment the Umgeni system, which supplies domestic water to more than 5 million people and industries in South Africa's third largest economy, vis-a-vis the Durban and Pietermaritzburg regions. The project cost is approximated at 23.2 billion at this stage. The Umgeni system is already experiencing a deficit and therefore needs to be augmented for increased water security in the Umgeni system until at least 2040, where we'll have to look at a different solution if needs be. And this is just a pictorial view of what's happening within the KwaZulu-Natal or Umgeni water supply system. We already on a deficit since 2016. And this shows the work that has been done initially between the department and TCTA in terms of the building of what we call the Spring Grove Dam. But it's always been clear that that won't be enough in terms of what we need to do. So between 2016 and even looking at 2030 and beyond, we can see that there's an agency for this project to actually be finalized, because other than that, we actually foresee that there's going to be a big crisis in terms of the availability of water within the KZN space at this particular point in time. But we are busy with the project, and there's a lot of engagements currently that are spearheaded by the minister and the deputy ministers, where there's a political steering committee that has been set up to make sure that we can deal with the administrative part of things and make sure that the proper contracting has actually been finalized. So we're currently busy with that process. Achievements on the Mkomazi Water Project in 2021-22, we did get the environmental authorizations for the projects that were approved by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment in September 2021. Usually these are some of the issues that lead to the delays, because there are environmental legislation. It's very strict in terms of what needs to happen. Water supply agreements, as I was saying, with the users were prepared, and we have commenced with the consultations, which we are still busy with also now. During these consultations, municipalities requested that the national fiscus contribute 50% of the project cost versus the 25% defined in the DWS feasibility study. And I think what our municipalities are saying, because cost of supplying water remain the same in terms of whether they are cheap or they are expensive, but the state of the economy at this particular point in time, and some of the things that have happened in the KZN space, including the floods and probably I would call them riots for a lack of a better word in terms of what transpired, has actually affected the economy of that particular region. So the municipalities, they are saying the amount of people that are really on the indigent or that cannot afford a bit more than what was anticipated. So we have been working with the DG as well and the deputy ministers and the minister to actually engage with the national fiscus through its other structures to make sure that we can come to the party. So for now, it does look like we are going through the processes. We've had enough information that has been put together. So these are going through the processes to try and get the support from the national fiscus. It does look good at this particular point in time, but we'll see the final outcome thereof. The political steering committee, as I've said, was established by the Minister of Water and Sanitation and gave direction to the parties to conclude agreements and for TCTA to engage National Treasury on the request of a fiscal plan. And like I've said, it is in progress at this stage. We do have projects that are at preparatory phase. And for now, I'll just focus on the one in Western Cape, which is the Berg River Full Flow Augmentation Scheme. The committee would also remember that in 2 or 3 years ago, we also had that crisis where there was drought and the Western Cape was affected heavily by that. So the department, through TCTA and working together with them, we have been looking at getting a solution to make sure that we can provide water security as well, particular region. The water reconciliation strategy for the Western Cape water supply system indicates that the system is also in deficit and should have been augmented by 2019-2020 to avert a severe shortfall. We have completed the conceptual designs and the cost estimate is sitting at 933 million. The revised cost estimate is higher than the initial one used, which was based on the DWS feasibility study information to estimate the indicative water tariff and inform the borrowing limit application. It should be remembered that one of the challenges that we have is the gap between when we do the feasibility or the department does the feasibility and the time that we get a mandate via a directive. So sometimes this cost would actually vary and we always have to work. So we've been working with the department to actually try and see how to still manage and get the cost manageable without necessarily having an impact on the project itself. Further consultation with water users will be required to confirm the affordability with the users, which will enable the signing of all water agreements, followed by raising of funding as well. Projects in operation and maintenance. We do have the acid mine drainage and the Lesotho Highlands water project phase 1, especially on the South African side. Short-term intervention for acid mine drainage. Operation of 3 plants in Gauteng to treat acid mine drainage to an acceptable quality before discharge into the environment. The budget currently sitting at 386 million. All water that was discharged into the environment met the required specification. No report of contamination of groundwater or surface water from acid mine drainage rising too high in the mine void were received. TCTA proactively overcame the challenges caused by the German supplier of the abstraction pumps not being able to give the required support to identify and rectify reasons for the pumps failing. And perhaps here, I just need to highlight this point that the reason why we specify in that these were German supplier, in the world, there were not a lot of manufacturers that actually had the kind of pump sets that we needed, because they have to be submersible and they needed to be able to deal with the acid mine drainage, which is a bit on the corrosive side. But we've been dealing with this, and probably in the coming year, when we because some of the things are happening in this particular year. We'll be able to report on some of the challenges that we had and how we're dealing with those. And the delivery tunnel north of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project. This is the South African part of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, because the first part of the project is the dams are in Lesotho and the water then comes into South Africa. And as soon as it hits the South African border through Clarence at the Ash River outflow, then we take responsibility for that part. So TCTA is operating and maintaining that part of the tunnel. TCTA complied with all its operations and maintenance obligations to ensure that the infrastructure could deliver the scheduled 894 million cubic meters of water at the designated outlet point on the Ash River. And the budget is 1.5 million. Chair, at this stage, I would, with your permission, invite the CFO to take us through the financial summary. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members and Chair CE. Regarding the financial, we'll look at first, I think the financial summary will cover the tariff receivable, which is the right for TCTA to receive funds from the DWS. We'll look at the movement between cash and cash equivalents, retained income, and long-term financial market liabilities. Next slide, CE. On the next slide, we have the comparative between 2020 and 2021. First one is the tariff receivable. We have a reduction from 12.8 to 9.5 billion. The reason for this is due to the cost capitalized being lower than the amounts that were received from DWS. The next one that we have is the retained income. The last slide, CE. On the retained income, we have an increase of 1.3 billion. This is just the surplus for the year under review, and it just represents the net finance income for the year. And on the long-term financial market and liabilities, we had a 2.7 increment from 9.9 to 12.6. This is due to the refinancing that was done during the financial year for the VRS. On the next slide, we look at the highlights that we have. I think in terms of the statement of financial performance, our tariff bill exceeds the budget, and this is mainly due to the volumes that we built being higher than what we anticipated. On the running expenses, these are below budget, and they are mainly due to the staff costs, O&M, royalties, and the LHDA ops and maintenance. We'll just cover this in detail in the next slide. And the finance charges, these are below budget due to the delays in setting up the JSE program for the VRS funding, and I guess due to the lower costs that we had. So we did not need to borrow funds to cater for these increased expense. On the next slide, these are just the main categories of the expenses that we had at TCTA. I think the first one is the staff cost. We had a variance of 59 million. This is mainly due to the resignations that we had during the year under review, and the positions that were not filled as was intended. And at year end, we had a vacancy rate of 19.59. And as well, due to the attraction of new employees, we incurred less cost by employing them, meaning that what we offered them was less than what we actually budgeted for. On the other one is the director's cost. On this one, we have lower cost, and this is mainly due to us having virtual meetings, so there was no need for us to incur some of the costs that are related to physical meetings. And as well, what is included here is any advisory services that the board would require. There was none needed for the previous financial year. In terms of the consulting fees, we have underspending of 48 million. This was mainly due to the delay in the implementation of the ERP system and due to the legal fees being below what was budgeted for. And for depreciation and amortization, this is mainly due to us not capitalizing the ERP cost. And I guess with that as well, there was a change in strategy on rather than us using actual server. The plan was actually to start using iCloud. So we were going to just thank you, Chair. And then with regards to the communication and other operating expenditures, on this one, the costs were lower than anticipated, and this was not due to cost containment and due to the restrictions that we have on COVID. So the stakeholder engagements could not happen as was intended. The next slide just looks at the split of data across the different projects. As per the slide, 80% of the debt is split between FRESUP and the LHWP, and 18% going to the FRESUP, and then 63% to the LWHP. The next one is just the analysis in terms of the cash that was paid for the year under review. There was a payment of 20 billion that was made in 2022. 65% of that was made for the repayment. I think the CE did cover the WSP redemption that was done in May 2021. And then the 27% of the cash was paid to suppliers, employees, and then the cost-related cost to the Lesotho. Thanks. And on the next slide, what we have there is just the audit opinion from the AG. We have received an unqualified opinion with no matter of emphasis, but we did have findings from the Auditor-General. I think in terms of the findings that we have, the material one that we have is the compliance finding, and this related to irregular expenditure that was incurred and covered the slow consequence management that that as TCTA we had, because we hadn't dealt with all the issues at the end of the financial year. And that covered as well the material adjustments that were made to the annual financial statements. And on this slide that we have here, this is irregular expenditure as at the end of the year. We had an opening balance of 806 million, and then the current expenditure that was incurred is the 2.1 million. This relates to non-compliance with legislation. And then we have 30.8 million expenditure that was identified in the current year but relates to the previous financial year. And the total at the end of the financial year was 839 million. In terms of this progress from our side, we had requested condonation from National Treasury for 651 million, and this was not approved. We are in the process of submitting this to our board so that they can write the irregular expenditure off that is in line with the framework that we have. The next slide, this is just a trend of irregular expenditure over the 4 years. I think the bulk where the irregular expenditure really started is in 2017-2018. And this was caused by the non-compliance with instruction note number 3. And at that year, we incurred irregular expenditure of 650 million. There has been a gradual reduction in irregular expenditure, and this is mainly due to controls that were put in place to ensure that we prevent this irregular expenditure growing. On the next slide. What we have there is basically what we are doing to reduce the irregular expenditure. We have improved the control environment within the procurement space. We've had a different workshop organizationally to ensure that all employees are aware of their responsibilities and what needs to happen for us to prevent the irregular expenditure from occurring. What we did as well, we do have a loss control committee that is in place, and they do operate in line with the guidelines by National Treasury. What is currently happening, we're trying to improve on the timelines so that we comply with these guidelines, because as per the guidelines, we have to deal with the irregular expenditure within the 30 days, and it is work in progress from our side so that we comply with that. The last slide just deals with the going concern. In terms of our assessment of TCTA, we will continue operating as a going concern. we will be able to meet all our obligations as they fall due. And there hasn't been any significant change in our operating environment to make us change our assessment as a going concern. Thank you, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We have done well in terms of time. I'm now inviting hands for unless there is something you want to say, Deputy Ministers, before we get into the hands.
Nothing from me, Chairperson.
Is Mr. Honorable Mahlobo now back?
No, comrade, I'm fine, Mashik, I'm fine.
Oh, okay, thanks. One hand is up, and I'm saying one hand because it is only one hand. Hanif Hendricks.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, you must admit, this is definitely a new one. It reads on the slide, services not procured in accordance with regulation, but value for money received, nearly 1 billion rand and R500 million not condoned by Treasury. I leave that with you, Honorable Chair, to digest. I'm very impressed with the passion that was displayed by the chair of the TCTA, and this seems to be filtering down in the department. And on the radar, Honorable Chair, is clean audits. That is good, but people don't want clean audits. They want water, they want to open the tap, and they want the taps in their yard. And if you go to villages like Harding, Matubatuba, Gradwell, Mapami Village, Jackal's Dance, Bushbuck Ridge, there are 10 villages or more, the people will just look you in the eye and ask you what you're talking about. We can't open a tap. We even have stands in our yards. So I think it's very important that the Director-General, if he finds the time, go and visit these communities and see what the situation is on the ground. And that we don't just look at reports that have been sanitized and presented and giving us hope as a committee that we won't be bad-mouthed like all the other committees and all the other ministers. You know, Honorable Chair, that Minister Sisulu fingered many of the people that were corrupt, and she laid charges, and that our new minister are putting better people in place, and we can see the benefits of all of that in that we're starting to get better audits. So yes, Honorable Chair, we understand that one of the presenters complained that the Department of Justice are not doing enough to prosecute. So I will raise that as I'm a member of the Portfolio Committee on Justice. It is not fair that ministers and portfolio committees and officials go out of their way to finger the looters and the corruptors, and then nothing happens to them. And people and children, African children, have to die of thirst. And we know that I've already reported to this committee that in Uitenhage, there was one death because of thirst. And also in that area, while I'm on it, the oranges get more water than the people. So it's very important that the Director-General and his staff, that they go out and see what's the situation on the ground and not just present us with these reports, which give us hope. Because for the first time in about 10 years, a minister and a portfolio committee won't be asked to fall on their swords. This committee is doing its best on oversight, and I'd like to compliment you, Honorable Chair, for your diligence, and there is improvement. No one can say that there is an improvement because things has been so bad the last 10 years, it could not get worse. So whatever we do, there's improvement. And Honorable Chair, the disciplinary cases moving forward must be held. Line management must push for these for set down dates and for these cases to be heard. Otherwise, they are not carrying out their mandate. But thank you very much, Honorable Chair. This portfolio committee, we want our full pound of flesh. We want water in the taps. Please carry out your mandate, Honorable Director General. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Honorable Hendricks. Honorable Mahdi, followed by Honorable Tseke.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my network is not okay. Can I switch off my camera, please?
Please do. Please do.
I have 2 questions for the department and 2 for TCA. The department had a target of implementing the National Digitized Integrated Water and Sanitation Monitoring System, and it was not achieved. What are the reasons for the target not being achieved by the department, and what impact would this have on the work of the department? That is question number 1. Number 2, on page 27, the Water Services and Local Management report that it has not achieved 46% of its annual targets. What is the root cause of the failure to achieve the set targets? What steps has the department taken to improve the poor performance? Has the department considered and implemented consequence management for poor performance of supply chain management officials? That's the 2 questions for the department. Can I have the questions for TCA? Chairperson?
Yes.
On page 26, it is reported that running costs are below budget, partly due to lower staff costs. Does this mean that there are vacancies within TCA that has not been filled? If so, what impact has the non-filling of vacancies had on the functioning of the entity? In the State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa committed all departments and entities to play their part in job creation. Will this non-filling of vacancies not go against the President's instruction? And then my last question, on page 33, the report highlights that even though there are improvements in the procurement control environment, incidents of non-compliance still persist. What further measures will the TCA take to ensure that there are zero incidents of irregular expenditure in the near future? Thank you, Chair.
Metseke.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me also join other members in appreciating, one, the presentations by the department and TCTA, and also commend them for their performance in 2021-2022. We know and understand that the department has been struggling for quite some time. There was no leadership in that department, and now the top management is there. We want to appreciate the work of the minister and the deputy ministers in making sure that the department is stable. and also with the performance of them getting the unqualified report or audit, as much as there are findings. But we are definitely sure that going forward, they must be able to address those findings by the Auditor-General. But we want to appreciate the good work that they are doing now. As much as there are still challenges, as Honorable Khanif is saying, we have confidence that the ministry will be able to tackle those challenges that we are facing in different municipalities. Chairperson, the question that I have, earlier on we met the Auditor-General and the DPME. And one of the things that the AG has raised, it's on the Immovable project. It's the cost inflated on goods to the amount of 131 million. Chair, I'm not quite sure because we have visited that project. We found yes, the project was on, but starting with the access route. So I'm not quite sure where is this costs that were inflated, which goods and services are they reflecting on? Can we get the details on what is this, Chair? And then on the other matter, they also raised the issue of, which is something that we have been raising consistently, on the water leaks in our country. They are saying as government, we don't have, there's a lack of national action plan to address water leakages or water losses in our country. I'm trying to check because I know that it's the responsibility of municipalities, but I'm trying to check with the national government or DWS on whether do we have plans in place to resuscitate the war on leaks, not forgetting the challenges that we are facing, the processes that unfolded in terms of this entire program. But we have plans to resuscitate that because we have invested a lot in the students that have been trained, and as we're speaking, they're still home. They're jobless, they're not working as we're speaking. And then on the other question that I have, in terms of we want to appreciate the work that you are doing in terms of the disciplinary cases. But I think there was a slide which talks to 73 cases not yet investigated. So I just want to get it clear in terms of those cases. What are the challenges? Why are they still not yet investigated? The other question that I have, it's what are the root causes for the department's failure to achieve its targets for the two designated groups, which is the youth and the people with disabilities, which managed only to achieve 19 and 2% respectively? What measures would the department put in place to ensure that it improves its performance regarding this matter? And my last question is on slide 21 of the department. The department reports that it could not achieve 4 of its targets in relation to the transformation of the irrigation boards into water users association. What have been the challenges faced by the department in transforming these irrigation boards? And what measures are in place to ensure that they are transformed before the end of the current financial year, 2022 and 2023? Chair, thanks. Those are my questions.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks.
Chairperson, my hand is up.
No, it's not. It's not. Let your hand be up, Smith. Let the hand be up. Put your hand up.
It's up, Dada.
It is not.
And
It can't be seen by you. It can't be seen by you alone. No, it can't be seen. Is there anyone who's seen Isana's name? Is Pezula? Grace?
No.
Do you see the hands? Raise your
There's no
hand.
hand, but we understand.
And you see,
my icon has got something that says reactions. Now, when I press that reactions, my hand goes up, but I don't know why you cannot see it. Maybe I need to go to that school.
You see, you might be waging a revolution of disobedience without wanting to say.
Not me, Jay.
Okay, okay. I see again.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair. I had to change the gadgets. I had a problem with my gadgets, but I am here now. Thank you for the presentation by TCTA. And I like the vision and the mission of TCTA. And I think if we manage and maintain that, the department will go to flies and we will have a better department as we've inherited it. The TCA is saying that they are also injecting money at VAL. You know, most I like VAL and Roy VAL. I like them. But I'm asking myself, we have been injecting money to VAL, but time and again, we're not getting the fruits that we expect. Can we get to know they've injected money for what? For what? Which area that they wanted to address within the VAL? There's an augmentation of projects, an amount of 12.3 billion, which a tender is awaited. The money is sitting at the corner, not doing anything because there's an expectation that there will be additional funding to assist the project. As a lay person, Chair, project management has got phases. My worry is that community of that area knows about this money and there's nothing happening. Can't the project be started in terms of planning and all other issues, utilize the funding that is there? I mean, speaking from a different, not knowing a professional project management, but that money is a lot for it to stay there and the project is not starting. Or else the money could be taken to a project that is ready. Umkoma's water. Umgeni. There's a deficit at Umgeni, where water is not increased because of that deficit. But there's an amount of 23.2 billion. Now I'm asking a question, can there be a creative strategy? Just create a strategy to address the issue, because Abantu, they want water and it's a big population. we can't have time to wait because we have to do this and that, but people need water now. In terms of the department's annual report on the institutional stabilization, there is a performance that is beyond 63, which is commendable, Chair. It's important that we raise those issues where it's due. The designated group, which is a transformation agenda. How I wish that we can get a factual report that is evidence-based. What is it? 2%? What did they do? Were they employed? Were they Dagger boys? Were they pushing the wheelbarrows? What were they doing? Because the issue is, we want the content, because we are building capabilities to this designated group. I wish we can get a report, Chair, that is going to give factual information about these percentages that are being given. The first before the last, Chair, there's a training that seems to be not given the significance that it deserves. It's not important. If I didn't read it well, please assist me. Training is very important for individual development and for the beneficiary of the department. And in that, there's an investment on you as an official and an investment on the department. I wish this could carry on and there could be a motivation so that those that don't see the need should be able to see the need for training or whatever. I will take any training that can come. Like I'm going to know about why my hand is not up when it's up. I need that skill so that I'm better off. So I do urge that there should be a motivation for those that don't see the need, for them to have that investment for their lives. That was the last one, Chair. Thank you.
Include a revolution, we share Simon. Thanks, members. Let me. The assumption I'm making is that okay, there is no other hands. That's fine. Deputy ministers and the minister of the minister is present in the meeting. Well, firstly, we must appreciate that we are a working ministry as per the report, be it of the Auditor-General or the monitoring and evaluation, or even yourselves. And even people on the ground, we are a department at work. But remember, we are department at work at a third layer of our exit. So please, you must also accept that we still need to behave as if we are still not happy about where we are coming from, because the reality is that we need to do, if we don't emphasize those points, it might seem as if this department is starting in 2021, 22, when it is not. So we need to be a little bit harsh on those in order for us to can work forward. For information, Deputy Minister Mahlobo, I am the honorary life president of Satau. We transport water from Velgedag to Saivater and Bezeten Hostress in your area. Now the Satao is on strike, so those tanks which are transporting water to those areas does not have water today in Bezeten Hostress, in Saivater, they do not have water. So there is a need of your intervention that the Satao strike must be resolved with inflation increment, because they must get their money, then they can go back to work.
For supporting increment.
Yes, I'm an ordinary president of Satao. Now, Mama Gazi, I was found by a spokesperson of Vokos Ramova Ngamachero Namusi. Voko Warangamanda, if you want to Zava to a vendor or one of us stop a project. And about Tobacco Walu sang out never stop a project, wasn't going to stop. The Ambauris, you find those look see about Sanda Kwatangaman. Now, just taking further what Honorable Spy was raising on the set aside or the previous disadvantaged individuals, we are missing to the target of youth and female and women. And let me tell you, if those two groups are very vocal group, if you do not get to address their issues, you can do any other good thing, but for as long as they do not see themselves as being part of the process, they will not appreciate what you are doing. So, I'm saying you are doing good as compared to where we were in 2019, but we are still not meeting the target of the youth and the women in the process. And I'm not wanting to raise it as a hardcore fighting, but I'm saying please look at it, because at the final analysis of your accounting, you are going to face with this reality of young people who fighting against us and women fighting against us on the basis of us not wanting to meet their target. And the president has changed, has said that we need to meet, instead of 300 days of paying our people debtors, that we should go to 90. We are at 105. It's not bad, but the thing is we want to meet the president's commitment of 90 as compared to 105 days that we are in. Sure, you are going to make follow-ups on the provinces. I don't know in the allocation of the province. My province, Gauteng, this time has no allocation. There's zero all the time. But with all the projects that are given, 128 projects, they only achieved 15 ministers, deputy ministers, and the minister. It's a cause for concern. 128 projects, 15 achieved. The other ones on the other side, 331, 72 achieved. It's a problem. On the Umgeni River in KZN, we were there on the floods. We are clear that we are going to face a head-on collision unless we do something else. What is it? What is the plan at TCTA? What is the plan to avoid that head-on collision of the fact that Umgeni is now on deficit already? And we still need water to KZN as we stand. We wanted to build 69 dams, we only built 42. If you look at the midterm report, you might say it is better, it's more than 50, but we know we are left with one year, couple of months into elections. And therefore, 52 out of 69 is not necessarily that much enough. Are we going to look into, as I was raising, the monies you are paying to Lesotho, whether is there value for money, just in comparison with the value for money that we had earlier on, that there is no value for money on the Umgeni River. We thought there was when we went there. We saw the exit road and the access road. we thought it is a process that is taking us forward, but you might help us to understand what really is the issue. Now, TCTA, and I'm sure Baba Mashobo will help us here. I am happy that TCTA is projecting this picture. But those of us who went to Eastern Cape with TCTA and the poster that the TCTA created in the meeting and we thought that TCTA is something that you need to forget about. I'm sure that's one of the reasons we might have not even have an issue to want to debate against the doing away of TCTA and bringing the WRA, because we thought it is not it's not value for money. But the reality of the matter, as the report given today, very effective, very capable. There is future, but unfortunately, its mandate will end very soon. Now, the long-term commitment that TCTA is making today, will it be taken over by those that are going to take over TCTA? And if so, we need to guard that it is not necessarily eroded, because we can't go back to where we were as a department. Otherwise, as Honorable Hanif Hendricks was saying, there is progress. In Bushbuck Ridge, as Hanif is saying, because I'm residing there, that's why I kept quiet. Indeed, quite a lot of pipes does not no all the waters, the pipe does not have water. But the reason about matter it's this thing. You will know your boy Jacob, who was given that contract. He was not paid his money. He blocked the pipe. So get hold of Jacob. Those pipes will be open. He just did not want to open the pipe from Nyaka Dam to supply water, because at some point he was not paid and rent water was dismissed. Therefore, he's ran away with the keys to the pipeline. And I'm sure if you can do that with Bushbuck Ridge, we will be able to have water. There is something called Giama. What is Giama in the water language? I've heard it earlier. I forgot to ask. GIAMA. Thank you very much.
Chair, you want us to respond now?
There was no one on the platform to ask you questions.
No, it's fine, Chair. Minister is also here. Maybe what we'll request we do, with your permission, Chair, we'll ask DG and the Chair of TCTA and the CEO just to start to respond on the other administrative issues, and then ourselves we can come in, and then our minister is also here. Thanks, with your permission, Chair. Thank you. If we can allow Dr. Phillips and the team. Yeah.
He is allowed.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I would like to provide some responses to some of the questions and comments, and then I'd like to, with your permission, Chairperson, refer some of them to some of my colleagues. Okay, so firstly, Honourable Hanif, on the issues that he raised. Honourable Member, under the leadership of Minister Mkhunu and the Deputy Ministers, we are going out a lot to communities to see what conditions are on the ground on almost a weekly basis. And we are painfully aware that there are still many communities without water, or without sufficient quality of water, or with erratic supply of water. And that many communities also don't have safe sanitation, and the condition of many wastewater treatment works is very poor in many municipalities. There's basically three reasons why communities don't have water or reliable water. The first is that in some areas, there's a need to develop more bulk supply of water, and we are seized with that with all the big infrastructure projects we're doing and working on. Some of them the TCTA has talked about today, and they include the huge ones like Lesotho Highlands for Gauteng, so that there'll be sufficient water for Gauteng, Umkomazi for the eThekwini area, raising the dam wall at Clan William Dam for the Cape Town area, and a range of other major capital projects to ensure that availability of bulk water supply doesn't become a constraint to supply of water to communities and for the economy. The second thing that we do is we have very substantial grants, the Regional Bulk Infrastructure Grant and the Water Services Infrastructure Grant, which we provide to municipalities for them to improve their distribution infrastructure. We work closely with the municipalities to assist them to plan for those projects and to monitor the expenditure on those projects. And then under Minister Mkhulu's leadership, we also have a major new initiative in the department, which wasn't so much there before, but that is to do much more to support and intervene in municipalities. These days, one of the main reasons why people don't have access to reliable water supply in communities is because of poor management and governance at municipal level. And the Constitution and the Water Services Act provide a legal framework which really oblige us as a department to support and intervene municipalities to address those situations, and we're doing it on a much greater scale than we've ever done before. We're currently supporting and intervening in approximately 30 municipalities around the country, which we didn't do before. So I can assure the honourable member that the issue of communities not having water or not having a reliable source of water is something that we are seized with on a daily basis, and it's our biggest priority in the department to address. The issue of the target for the digitized monetary system that wasn't met, on that one, we had to go through a procurement process to the State Information Technology Agency, as is required for all IT procurement processes. And there were some difficulties with the procurement and some delays in the procurement, and that is what delayed our performance in achieving that target. The second question by Honourable Peterson was whether we need to take disciplinary action or do performance management of our supply chain management officials because of the non-achievement of targets. In some instances, poor performance of individuals in supply chain might have contributed to our general poor performance, but my assessment as the accounting officer, Honourable Peterson, is that our bigger problem as a department is the way we go about doing our procurement. And as I indicated in my introductory remarks, particularly for all our infrastructure and construction projects, our procurement strategy is very old-fashioned and very weak. It means we have far too many procurement events. In other words, we go out to the market far too often, rather than being smarter and entering into longer-term period contracts and grouping things together so that we can have a more manageable number of procurement events. So we are busy changing our infrastructure and construction procurement policy and strategy, and we're going to be implementing it more smartly in future. We do, where there is gross non-performance and where necessary, we do take disciplinary action for poor performance. There are cases that we're doing, but as I indicate, I think our bigger problem at the moment is putting in place a smarter, better procurement strategy and implementing it. And that should result in us doing much better in terms of achieving our targets, particularly with regard to all of the projects which we implement. On the Immovable project, I'd like to just say a little bit, Honourable Tseki, and then when I'm finished speaking, I'd like to ask Leonardo to add to what I've said, if necessary. The money that we spent on Immovable so far is for the designs and also for the initial site establishment work, such as the roads that you've seen. The project is very substantial. It's much more than 131 million. So we've done the designs for all of it. although the process is still underway through the request for information to obtain a contractor and a financing partner for the main project. But the 131 million might seem substantial at the moment for the work being done, because it also includes the design for the bigger project as well. In addition, Honourable Seki, we don't have any plans to resuscitate the War on Leaks program, partly informed by the view that the biggest problem with regard to non-revenue water and water leaks in municipalities is in the municipal distribution system, which requires a different level of sophistication of contractors to address it. For example, to dig up very old leaking pipes and to replace them, as opposed to the plumbers who were trained on war and leaks. But we are actively encouraging all municipalities to vigorously implement water conservation and demand management, and where necessary to recruit the necessary technical staff to fix the leaks, and that would include from the War and Leaks graduates who have the necessary skills to become municipal employees. With regard to the question about the root causes for not achieving the target groups in our procurement, I've looked into this since our last meeting, together with our supply chain people. The key issue here is that our procurement is, the application of preferences in our procurement is governed by the PPFA, the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act 2000, and the National Treasury and the Preferential Procurement Regulations of 2017, which are all issued by National Treasury. So in terms of that act and those regulations, we have to apply the 90-10 or 80-20 rule, where 90% of the points go to price and 10% to preferences, or 80% to price and 20% to preferences, depending on the size of the projects. And then we have to award the tender to the highest point scoring tenderer. If we don't do that, we get an audit query or an audit finding that our procurement was irregular. So we have to follow this, and it means that we can't deliberately, we have to follow that process. We can't just say, well, for this project, we're going to appoint people with certain or companies with certain percentages of ownership by women or youth. We have to apply this point system and then award the highest point scoring tenderer. The 2017 PPFA regulations did, however, introduce a change from the previous PPFA regulations. In clause 4 of those regulations, they enabled something which they called pre-qualifying criteria to advance certain designated groups. And they said that we can apply these, that if we want, we can apply these pre-qualifying criteria, which can include a tenderer having a stipulated minimum BE status, or limiting tenderers to only emerging companies in terms of the size of the companies, or a tenderer subcontracting a minimum of 30% to one or more of a range of things which are listed in this clause 4 of the PPFA regulations, which include ownership by youth and women. What I've discovered is two things. The first is that we haven't been measuring, while we've been applying this pre-qualification, when we've been reporting on the achievement of our targets, we haven't been measuring the contribution from the subcontractors when we apply this subcontracting pre-qualification criteria, which means we've been under measuring the contribution. We've been under measuring the achievement of our targets in this regard. So I've asked them to measure it in future. So hopefully in future quarters, we'll see an improvement, because we'll start measuring, our measurements, our reports will include the contributions to meeting these targets by the subcontractors who are subcontracted by these companies where we put this pre-qualification criterion of 30%. The second thing I found out is that we haven't been applying this pre-qualification criterion to all of our smaller projects under 10 million rand. And I've instructed them that our supply chain people that it must be applied to all of our projects in future. So between those two things of the under-reporting on the contributions from the subcontractors and the application of the pre-qualification criteria to all of our projects in future, we hope that there'll be an improvement in the achievement of these targets in future. With regard to the value for money in Lesotho, perhaps the TCTA is better equipped to respond to that question. I'm not aware of a lack of value for money being a major issue on the first phase of the project. On the current phases of the project, it's mostly in the procurement phase. It's been through an open competitive procurement process, and there are very stringent governance processes in place through the Lesotho Highlands Management Authority to ensure that the process is regular, that it's above board, and that we get the best prices that the market can offer. So they're on an advanced stage with those procurement processes for the major components of this phase of the Lesotho Highlands project. Chairperson, with your permission, I'd now like to ask my colleagues to add, perhaps if we can start with Leonardo, if you'd like to add anything on the Immovable project costs.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, DG. Honorable Chair and honorable members. Just to add in terms of what the DG mentioned regarding Immovable, correctly so, yes, we spent the predominant amount of money at this point in time on the design work, as well as the construction of the advanced works, which would be the road, as we're currently busy there. But also in terms of the AG's funding was reflective in terms of what has happened before, when it is not unfamiliar when large projects such as this that would be under design, that you would sometimes put a dam design into a process of 1 to 3 years for design to be completed. And in over such time, it would be that there would be claims coming to the department regarding certain work that has been done, and then with reports that actually put in and motivating for claims that need to be paid. Unfortunately, in this regard, there was an issue of cost of works that led to a dispute that was actually eventually adjudicated upon. And we were in the process, even because the department also was successful in that adjudication ruling, then to do a fair value determination in terms of the work that is currently being done. So we did receive some of the drawings, but not perhaps complete in usable format. And that is the reason why we are currently going through this fair value determination process with the PSP. And we are confident that when we are the next round with AG, that this process should then be completed, and that we can then produce all the deliverables that would be then see that there is no overpayment or none of the or fruitless in terms of the value of 131 million that was mentioned. So I can just add that component as far as that part of Immovable is concerned. Thank you, DG.
Thanks, Leonardo. And Toko, can you come in to assist us, please, with the question about the transformation of the irrigation boards?
Thank you, DG, Honorable Chairperson and members. I'm responding to the issue raised by Honorable Tseki. Yes, we did not meet our target in terms of the transformation of irrigation boards into water user associations. And the main issue is around the changes from the 1956 Water Act to the 1998 National Water Act.
Okay.
It's not me, Chair. The issue of transformation is very intensive, Chairperson. And also it involves a lot of negotiation between the stakeholders that are currently involved in the irrigation boards. However, we have proceeded with the transformation scorecard, which is institutional transformation, where all the entities will be able to comply with. And we have commitment from the Association of the Water User Associations that they are supporting us and we are moving forward. We have also revised the constitution to ensure that they do not vote per the hectares of land, but we move towards a new model way of voting. So, Chairperson, even though we did not achieve, we are on track to catch up in this financial year. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Toko.
Thanks.
There was a question about GIAMA. GIAMA is the Government-Wide Immovable Asset Management Act, which is an act which was put in place by the Department of Public Works to provide guidance for how immovable assets owned by various national departments are managed and how asset registers should be kept and how asset management plans should be developed. So we are familiar with the content of that act, and in the we do produce asset management plans for all of our assets, Honourable Mashego, and I think we are broadly speaking aligned or in line with the Government-Wide Immovable Asset Management Act. I'm not sure that I fully understood Honourable Sikwai's questions about the VAL, but there's two things. We are implementing the VAL intervention project with regard to the sanitation challenges in Empoleni and in surrounding areas in the VAL. And that project is now progressing much better than before under the leadership of the Minister and the Deputy Minister, Maklobo, who've been intervening frequently to ensure that delays are addressed. So currently there are quite a number of contractors on the ground working on the sanitation challenges in the VAL. It's being managed by Rand Water. They also have done design work for major upgrading of the wastewater treatment works in the area, and they will be going out on tender and awarding tenders for that shortly. So there's a lot of short-term work happening on the ground, fixing of pumps, replacement of old pipes. Much of these previous sewage spillages have now been stopped. But the big work to upgrade the wastewater treatment works is still coming. That is progressing, and that is all, the procurements have been done through a competitive process. So I think we are obtaining or endeavoring to obtain value for money there. Then there's a separate issue which came up in the TCTA presentation, which is about the role of the Lesotho Highlands water project in terms of adding money to the Vaal River system, which is the whole river and dam system which supplies Gauteng with water, and the amount of water in that system is going to be increased with the new phase of the Lesotho Highlands project. And perhaps Percy, I could ask you to come in at this point to talk a bit more about provide a bit more clarity with regard to the questions about to clarify the envisaged impact of the next phase of the Lesotho Highlands project on ensuring that there's sufficient water in the Gauteng region, and also perhaps to answer Honourable Sikwai's further question about the Umkomazi project. Percy?
Okay, thanks, DG. Chairperson, with your permission, I will also then deal with the other issues that were directed to TCTA as well. But starting with the matter of value for money as far as the project that we're talking about. When we talk about the VAL, we talk about the Vaal River system. This would be inclusive of dams that are built in Lesotho and some that are built in South Africa. I think it needs to be understood from that end. Now, the work that the committee or members was referring to, it's more on the distribution side in terms of the challenges that were there, as DG saying they relate to sanitation, they relate to the distribution network of the municipality, and also some of the challenges faced by the water boards. But where we are operating, it's actually at a level above that. Maybe I need to put it this way, except for when it rains, Gauteng does not have any source in terms of water itself. That is why the South African government, through the department, actually decided that we need to engage with Lesotho to actually ensure that we can get water from Lesotho, come into South Africa, and end up in Gauteng, and I think about 4 other provinces in terms of what the area serves. Now, the Vaal River system is made up of about 14 dams, and some are for balancing, some are for keeping water for when there's drought. That's why in most cases, the department will always say that even if there's a drought, there's no problem in Gauteng, because we do have some of the bigger dams that are built through this process that TCTA is involved in to actually keep water rather than send it through, like but perhaps maybe I should not get deeper into that. So when we talk about the work that is being done by TCTA, it's more in terms of the second phase of the Lesotho Highlands.
Chairman, we are fihla. Khona ukufihlayo.
Chairperson, can I still talk? We can hear you,
Yes.
Chair. Okay, now I'm trying to explain this in terms of how it operates. So where we are involved is now in saying, is there enough water coming out of Lesotho? We did the phase 1, South Africa is still paying for that. Now there's the phase 2 in terms of building new dams in terms of the Pudihai. But the idea is to actually ensure that water that comes into South Africa then gets augmented, and there's a larger amount of water that comes to make sure that in the future, we don't actually run the problem of not having enough water on the South African side. Like I said, if there's one project that is value for money, it would be the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, just on the basis that it does secure security of supply to South Africa by getting water coming out of Lesotho. So that is in the main how we operate, and the money spent in the project are more at that level. And I think there was also an issue related similar in terms of the 12.3 billion and the 23.2 billion costs. This money, I need to just explain. This is the planning that Member Squire was talking about when it comes to, at the beginning of the project, how much is the project going to cost? It's not like there is money that is allocated already. It's just us now saying this is the cost of the project, and TCTA being a special purpose vehicle. Primarily, the minister would give us mandates or directives to say, for these projects, we need TCTA to go and do them because this is for customers that would be able to pay for the services. That's why if you look at the voting, budget votes that come to Parliament, in most cases, the projects that are given to TCTA, we're not getting money from the fiscals through the budget votes, except for cases where there are social components, which would be people that cannot afford but that do not have water. And I think that has been covered in a manner of speaking by some of the comments made, like by Member Hanif as well, in terms of saying people need water. So that's where now the department would work through its own budget now to make sure that there's an allocation. In the past, TCTA was looking at dams where only those that can afford would now, we have the processes because we go into the market to borrow the money. So that money is not money that's available, and we are not even allowed to take the projects forward until we've secured that money. So what we are doing with, in the presentation was to give the indicative figures in terms of how much these projects are going to cost. But there are processes that we still have to follow, and that's why we are the ones that go into the market. And the reason why TCTA was formed is because Department of Water and Sanitation, as a government or as the state, they can not go into the market to borrow money themselves. And TCTA was created for that particular reason, to say, you will, on behalf of the minister, for projects that can fund themselves, go into the market to borrow money. You will look at the project management thereof. You'll raise the money. You'll also now deal with the debt to make sure that this money is recovered and those loans can be repaid. So this is where the money is coming from. That's why from Parliament side, all the other issues when it comes to assisting or approving the department's budget, this is what goes into the budget votes. And unless, like I'm saying, the component where we now need to have a decision made, or the department would come and say, we need money because there are other people that needs to be supported, and yet they do not have the money to pay for the projects. So that's how it actually works at a high level. And perhaps if I can address the issue that were raised by Member Peterson in terms of how we work and the vacancies and whether they have an impact on performance. Perhaps I need to put it this way. TCTA as a special purpose vehicle does not have a balance sheet. So we are not allowed to keep any money except for the projects themselves. So the money that we're talking about, it's all monies that are actually ring-fenced per project, and make sure that over the period of the building of whatever infrastructure that we need to do and then hand it over to the department, there is enough money for that. But what that means as well is we've tried to look at our admin costs and try to keep them down. So what we do is, depending on where the project is, whether we have all the required and requisite approvals, both from the minister and primarily also from the Minister of Finance, we would have some vacancies and only trigger them when it's necessary. Some of the terms of the contracts are such that they are linked to the term of the building of or the construction of the infrastructure. Otherwise, we will have more overheads where we have more people and then we don't have a lot of projects. And I think this is one of the things that we're keeping a close eye on, and we worry as well when directives are actually withdrawn sometimes, because we try to make sure that we keep enough people to ensure that the directives that we have at the time will be able to execute them when the time comes. But it's something that we are working on at this stage. So the answer is, you would have vacancies sometimes, and yes, sometimes they are key, but in the main, we try to make sure that we match the filling of those vacancies with where the projects are, so that we don't have people that are being paid whilst we don't have projects that are running on the ground. So that's how it operates. And I think on the issue of procurement lapses, this was more in line with the original question asked by Member Hanif Hendricks, where we're saying National Treasury Note 3 is the reason why we're having all this, or most of the irregular expenditure. TCTA was following the rules in terms of what sits in the other processes in terms of the CIDB. But then National Treasury said, if you are having any deviations above a particular threshold, which I think was 20 million, you need to send it to us and we'll be the ones that give you the authority to either proceed or not. Now, the problem is the current contracts that we have say you need to have an engineer on the ground, because our infrastructure, except for the dams, is underground, which means you can try to put or lay a pipe down and find that there are rocks or there are other things that you need to change. Now, for you to deviate, it might cost more than 20 million because of the size of the project that we deal with. In that case, it needs to go to National Treasury for approval. Now, in the meantime, you have a contract and a contractor that you need to pay for standing time. And that is more now fruitless and wasteful, because you are paying money for nothing. But on the other side, we had a system where an engineer could make a call there, and it was an acceptable process. But we have been engaging with National Treasury, and it's not only TCTA that was in this situation, but National Treasury has given the authority back to the organizations, which would make it easier for us to deal with these things. So, and I think the DG has done a good job in terms of explaining that sometimes, even if you know where people are that do not have water, you still have to go through the processes. Section 217 of the Constitution is very clear that you need to go through a competitive process. And sometimes that takes long, because you can't just go and say you are going to appoint this particular service provider, and you still have to look at the cost and whether there's affordability when you do your feasibilities. So there are things that we need to balance at all times. But I think between ourselves and the department, we're doing quite a lot to try and make sure that we can get to the project that needs to be done and ensure that we meet the target as set up in terms of what the requirements are. And I think from our side, some of the things that we've done is we've put plans in place. We've got the procurement unit of National Treasury to provide training for all of TCTA or members that are involved in the supply chain. So we've been improving our systems to actually make sure that we don't have these lapses at all. Chair, I would think that most of the issues have actually been addressed, and then probably maybe the one thing that we need to look at is there are people, Member Hanif, that you need to have water availability in terms of where they are. And I think as a country, the issue of spatial justice has not necessarily been thoroughly engaged on in terms of the consequences thereof, because there's a lot of people that are in places where it's difficult to send water. So we need to try and see how to get the water there in a cost-effective manner. And I think that's something that we're dealing with the department. And the cost of that would actually be determined by whether we're close to the water or we're too far from the water. But it is an ongoing process, and we're trying to make sure that water can actually get to all the people in the country in terms of where they are. So, Chair, with your approval, I would like to think that I have addressed the issues that related to TCTA itself. I know there was one question that was addressed to the Chair, and I don't know whether the Chair of TCTA would want to address it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. I think I'm actually addressing this matter because when I was providing an overview, I did allude to it. That's the issue of the clean audit, which is what we aspire to. And there was a question which was quite relevant that all clean audit must actually translate into clean water. Now, I think any clean audit opinion that does not translate into service delivery, in fact, it's actually mythical that it shouldn't, because every clean audit opinion from the Auditor-General must translate into effective service delivery, depending on what the determination of the end state benefit is. And TCTA as an entity is mandate driven, although we manage projects, but we firmly are aware that all these projects seek to address an issue that has been raised by the shareholder. An issue around maybe access to water can actually cite one, where the intention, the Mokolo Crocodile document, is actually a project that seeks to stimulate the economy, the local economy of the coalfield area. So all what I'm saying is it is inconceivable that TCTA, in pursuing a clean audit opinion, will not ensure that it translates into proper service delivery. Because in any case, the audit process itself does focus on performance, and that performance is actually linked to our agreement with the shareholder compact. So it's just to provide assurance that as we pursue this objective, we will not compromise in terms of service delivery, because in any case, it's not possible. A clean audit is good business, and a clean audit will always translate into better service delivery. Where there's poor governance and poor audits, whether it's in the public or private sector, it just translates into poor service delivery. Thank you, Chair.
DMs? Or is that you, DG?
Yes, I just wanted to ask, with your permission, to see if our DDG for Water Services, Rizimati, would like to respond to any of the questions. Rizimati?
Thank you, DG. I think you have covered most of the things. The other issue on the VAL, which I think might have also emerged on the background of the question that was asked, is that around the Mfuleni area, we have discovered as a department that there's actually high water losses there. So that basically contributes to some of the current water issues in the area. And we have, through our provincial office, engaged the municipalities with an intention to come up with an intervention plan to assist them. As we know, the area or the municipality was under Section 63, of which this intervention also expand to the whole sanitation services that the department is engaging on. But on the water side, there are already works that Rand Water as the implementing agent, as they carry on some of the repair and maintenance works, where best pipes are identified, they are actually fixing such and they're providing stead to us. And to add on that, we also as a department are having weekly meetings in the level of the DDG and the CEs and COO for Rand Water on a weekly basis every Monday to look on progress on such activities. The last issue, DG, that I felt was asked initially was about the Hoshani water scheme, where they mentioned that in those areas people don't have water. We have actually engaged and gotten involved as a department. We have identified issues which the Bushbuck Ridge local municipality gave us an update and action plan. That area, Chair, it still has a lot of the old asbestos cement pipes that are quite old and are highly susceptible to leakages. So, and there's quite a lot of illegal connections in those areas. This basically affects the amount of water they can keep in the system and what people can actually utilize. And this has led to the municipality doing the water rationing to try and keep the balance between demand and supply. But what we have been doing as a department is to monitor the progress and also help them develop the water conservation and water demand management. So we are helping them to develop the water balance, to understand how much water they need and how much water is being utilized. They're also committed that they are upgrading one of the water treatment works, which is Hoshan Water Treatment Works, that should supply the Donga Reservoir from 22 megaliters to at least 31 megaliters, which should basically start in the next financial. So the department is basically intervening in those areas to try and make sure that we are closer to where some of these problems are. But we are grateful that at least the municipality is taking ownership of the issues which has, for the past few years, has appeared in local government that municipalities are actually failing to step forward to address their issues. That is one issue that I felt I could actually highlight, DG, but the rest have been covered. Thank you.
Comrade Chair, I think on our side, the minister, as we have said, is here. But I think the team, Chair, they've responded to most of the issues. And we must convey our sincere thanks, especially yourselves as a portfolio committee, because if you remember, the financial position of the department looked very bad when we started 2.5 years ago. And you could see that where you asked us to produce a turnaround plan around the issues of finances. And the team has reported, you could see there is a lot of significant progress that has been made. But since since the president last year made this as a standalone ministry, not that the department was not there, through the leadership of Matsingo and the minister, there's been an impetus because you could see now for the first time there is stability in terms of management and in the organization. All those positions that you were very worried about them, we are happy to report now that we've done well, and the very capable men and women are actually at the helm of the department in terms of the stabilization, because it was one of the issues, especially the musical chairs. And when we are receiving this annual report, Chair, One of the matters was issues of consequence management, especially with respect to high levels of corruption and malfeasance that the department was renowned for, including the issues of high levels of irregular expenditure. And you could see, Chair, the minister has been with us and he has come to report a number of decisions have been made. People have been brought to book, while other matters with the law enforcement agencies, they are taking their course, taking a little bit of time. But you could see that some of these issues, working with National Treasury and with your support, there are condemnations that have been made. And in as much as we know that condemnations are dependent on consequence management, of which there's a clear decision by the minister, supported by the two deputy ministers, that we will have zero tolerance on issues of malfeasance, and we're acting on that. But we should be able to conclude some of the issues because you could see they are taking a little bit of time. And with respect to issues of major projects that are behind schedule, the team has reported, Chair, you could see the intervention in each and every province. There are priority projects, the minister has decided on them. And we are working very hard with local government, even beyond the mandate of the department, but with the understanding that ultimately the authority around issues of water and sanitation rests with the minister. We are supporting a number of these municipalities all over. That's why the example of Mpumalanga, the example of Northwest, the example of Gauteng, examples in Limpopo that the teams have spoken to. There have been some setbacks, we must admit. We should have done certain things on time, but we are picking up and we are drawing lessons with the team putting the proper systems. And then we do agree, Chair, that the issues around the water allocation, the skewed allocation to certain sectors, it remains an area of concern. And at the very same time, we do agree we need to transform. We should have moved long time ago, especially this irrigation board, the exclusion of Black people. I don't want to call them HDI. The exclusion of Black people and women in particular in those communities. And there is a clear instruction from the minister that that must be done. And Umamakas has been leading that work. You attended the National Water Summit that the minister convened earlier this year. There are clear decisions that have been made. But overall, we are on track, but we know that there are many communities that still don't have water and decent sanitation. And our work is far from complete. And working together with you, we should be able to deal with those issues. Well, I know that in the next few days, you might be going to Limpopo. I know that there was issues of petitions. I happened to bump to your brother, who's the petitioner there, with the minister there on that other areas. Some of those issues, they have been attended to. But as a department, we should be supporting you, and we will be there when you go to those communities of Vembe and Mopane to see some of those things about the Kiani project, but more importantly also about those communities who says there's still some deficit on the work that government has done. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Yeah, you must also not forget about the inflation rate salary increment.
Yabona kufuna ukufaka umacingo nendabeni zama-salaries qale. Nathi nje we can put on the agenda the payment of water. Those who can afford to pay must pay. And then our social security policy must cover those who can't pay.
You see, you said the best.
Mama Gazi. Mama Gazi. Akekho.
Ukhona indaba ezethu macingwane nomama Gazi ukhona.
Ya ngisho ngifuna agcine uma macingwane. Angifuni ukuthi macingwane akhulumile uma Gazi aphinda abuye. Makangekho kulungile macingwane.
Ngiyabonga sihlalo. Ngiyabonga kakhulu sihlalo.
Mina ngobulekile phakathi manje.
No, thank you very much, Stalo. Thank you very much, the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. I think DG and team, and I think DM Mahlobo has covered a lot of ground. I just have two things to say. One is to emphasize what Togo said about transformation. We're very much onto it. We're developing a lot of passion, and we're programmatic about a number of them. One that is going to come that we're dealing with is the Guyana one. We see that we have to establish a WUA there so that what continues to happen there, which we are investigating by people who are in the upper stream, overusing and possibly abusing their water in that area, comes to an end. We're dealing with that very much. But thanks for raising it. And then the last thing I want to raise is the emphasis on the need to provide water. And I think DG captured our policy stance on this, or our approach, if you like. And he is right saying that's our priority. And it's our priority indeed. We are really getting understood, we're getting to be understood by municipalities that we're not being bossy or a big brother in approaching. We're acting on the real plight of the people of South Africa and wanting to change things around. We feel we're no longer getting resistance like we used to do before, where people would say, no, give us money only, or even technical capacity only, and then go off. We'll do this thing alone, because we understood and we explained to them that we don't think it's just a question of you being undercapacitated, such that you need 2 or 3 human beings. You also require oversight and a lot of other things, expertise, and to pick up speed and so on. But it also emphasized our agreement with the Portfolio Committee that we are very much concerned, and it's our priority, priority number 1, the provision of water. And we think by end of this year, our profile on provision, real provision, will have improved quite a lot than it is at the moment. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Minister, and we must appreciate, I think if we do not appreciate that there is one of the reasons we call it a city kushawa edonsayo emile ayingeke ishawe ngoba phela kwenzakala lutho nenja iyadlula nje ifaka amanzi ngoba izimele, kodwa ke kumele sisebenzise phambili. There is work done, we can appreciate that, we can see it, we can feel, you can hear people saying. The fact that a lot of people are coming and complaining that there is no water is because they see other people receiving water. I mean, for instance, when I gave a statement that the department, the Portfolio Committee is going to Guyana on the 28th, the following day, there is an occupation in Guyana. So meaning that it's simply because they knew that there is work being done, they are occupying the space. So there is work being done. However, we still need to just emphasize proactiveness and so forth, and which is there, we can see. Members, I think that we might have come to the end of the presentations. And what is our next item, Pepiwa?
We are done, Chairperson, is your closing remarks.
No, thank you very much. Our next meeting is on Thursday at 2.
Yes, Chairperson,
Angisho.
briefing by the
It's okay.
agencies of the department.
Yes. Siyacela ke mahlobas angikhulumi ngomacingwane ngikhuluma ngama-deputy minister. Nizameni madoda ukuthi le inflation is increment itholakale kula union. Otherwise la union niyayazi ingozi kanjani. Mahlobo. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Viva, Chair, viva.
Recording stopped.